Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome back to today's Endless Dream Realm boss guide. So we are back with Stomper, which is our 5th boss. And for this boss specifically, I'll say there's actually 2 optimal builds which I would like to share today. One is the more premium build consisting of Scarlita, while the other one is the Mauler faction build with the likes of Kruger as well as Shakir. So the positioning as well as the artifact used for this boss, I'll say varies between the build for different reasons, which I'll explain later on. So for the very first build is the Scarlita-Thoran build. So this is the arrangement. You got to actually link Scarlita to Thoran to help to tank some damage for Scarlita, because she'll always be in the front line and she'll actually get killed off by the snow wave attack if she's not linked to Thoran. So this way, Scarlita will be able to become the 3rd damage dealer, will be able to become the buffer for the team with the seasonal skill, and then you rely on the constant damage from Odie as well as Merrily for the maximum damage output. So the other team option is one which we use our old meta team, which is the Shakir one together with our dear Kruger. Okay, so for this team, we will be using the Quick Blade spell because this team has quite a few physical attackers which will benefit greatly from the defense down, and the additional sword attack as well as the additional damage coming out from the sword attack will prove to be helpful for more damage as well as removing the snow prison. So this is the 2 builds that are, I'll say, pretty meta. In terms of the damage range, they are pretty close. It's just that I think there is going to be a lot of RG on this boss, like how well your OD survive, how long your carry survive, who gets snowball, etc, will have an effect on your final damage. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the Mauler team first. Okay, so for those of you guys who are still not familiar, actually my leg is injured, so I'm sitting slanted with my leg elevated on off screen here. So right here, as you guys can see, Kruger will actually apply a massive debuff on the boss, which will lower the physical defense. So before Merrily gets her white color aura on the bow, she's actually a physical attacker. And then we have Shakir with the Lupin aura benefiting Kruger as well as Odie on the front line. And I'll say the difference or the big damage gap comes from the final 20-30 seconds. So this is where the boss will actually unleash a snow wave, and whether or not your OD can survive will determine the final damage. So right here, unfortunately, OD didn't survive, so I don't think we are hitting our higher pick. So I'm expecting a lower pick of around 35 or 36 billion. So I'll do a second run to just recalibrate the damage so that you guys can see the RNG factor in this boss. Okay, so right here we are 36.7 billion. So I'll run through the damage range. Okay, so this is the damage range. So main damage source will be Odie as well as Merrily. Unfortunately, Odie died a little bit earlier. Like this RNG factor comes in the idea whether or not the boss snow wave actually hits really hard, whether or not it crits, whether or not Shakir is around Odie to give the Lupin aura to reduce damage from that. Okay, so we'll do one more run to just showcase the variance. So this is 36.7 billion. Okay. So this very same issue occurs with the Scarlita comp as well. Because for Scarlita's comp case, I think where your Scarlita runs, how fast your Scarlita runs from point A to point B, where she hammers, affects her final positioning, which will affect the snow wave attack as well as the different follow-up attacks coming out from the boss. There's a lot of RNG factor in this boss in a sense. You can control where you start the position of the unit, but depending on who gets targeted by the skill, depending on whether or not the boss crit, it will actually change the outcome of the battle. So specifically for this boss, right, or rather specifically for a lot of the endless boss, they hit really hard. So if the boss crits at their final attacks, for example like this one, your carry or your secondary carry doesn't survive, and then you lose a lot of your damage. So this is one issue with this team, I'll say, because you are sending Odie in. Another way for you to sort of reduce this issue is to use the Scarlita one, where instead of sending Odie in, you send in Merrily instead. So I'll talk about that later. So this one we get a little bit lower. Okay, but you guys can try and error with this team. The highest I've gotten with this team on my account is about 38.4 billion. So if you have decent RNG to sort of protect Odie until the very last second, I think Odie should be able to jam in close enough damage to Merrily and then do more damage from there. So right here, right, we have another team setup, which is the Scarlita one. So for the Scarlita one, the idea is already explained earlier. So Scarlita will be the tertiary damage dealer. And for this one, you're using Evocation Spell because Evocation Spell is a generally better artifact for bossing. It's a generally better artifact for Seasonal Dream Realm. And you can choose to send either between Odie or Merrily. I think if you want a more consistent damage, I think sending Merrily in will be better because Merrily will be jumping around away from the boss. So unlike Odie, who will be standing in front of the boss, which will cause him to die more consistently, right? Sending Merrily in, she will jump out and then she will still get the good buffs that Reina provides for the carry. So I'll try this one out and see how it goes. Later we'll switch the positioning between Odie as well as Merrily to do a damage comparison. So for this boss specifically, I think in general, units which are less reliant on their skills will be the better units, right? So obviously Odie, who relies on normal attack, Merrily, who relies on normal attack, they benefit a bit from the skill, right? They get more damage from the skill, but they are generally better units which are not so reliant on their skills, like maybe Coco or Smokey, so you can definitely use them. So similar to the previous boss, Coco and Smokey is not very good for this boss, unfortunately. So the usual Mauler duo that we use is not the strongest pairing for this one. Yeah, so this is for that. So right here, Thoran actually took some of the damage for Scarlita, allowing her to survive. So this way, I think this way, right, what happens is because Merrily is in a safer position compared to Odie, so both our carries, or all three of our carries, managed to survive for a longer period of time. So this is 36.5 billion. It's pretty close. I think the range comes in terms of whether or not a unit dies, right? So if the unit can survive, we will actually hit harder. So now we're going to switch out the positioning. This time around, we are going to send in Odie. So exact same. So for this one, the reason why we are not using Quick Bait Spell is because the only unit that truly benefits from the Quick Bait Spell debuff is Thoran. So Merrily does benefit from it as well, but there's only two units which will benefit, unlike the Kruger Shakir comp. Right, yes, I think Merrily does benefit, but considering Scarlita comes down and just do true damage straight away, she doesn't really benefit from the physical defense down, unfortunately. So that way, the overall efficiency for that artifact is a lot lower compared to this evocation spell, which generally benefits like true damage better in most cases. Okay, so right here, Odie actually died, unfortunately. Okay, but I think putting Odie in front allows Odie to take a little bit more damage and charges up the skill a little bit faster. So right here, we died pretty early, so there is quite a, I'll say like a large variance for this boss. Yeah, like this is the RNG factor which we cannot control. So the best damage with this account was from that Scarlita comp, which is 38.8 billion. My best damage was with the Shakir comp, which is about 38.6 billion. So this is Zeeebo with the second round of recording. For this boss specifically, I kind of left out the substitute portion. So other than the Kruger comp, other than the Scarlita and Thoran comp, I think Fresto is fine as well. Right, Fresto is obviously going to be good with the massive damage reduction as well as the stats link. The other unit which is quite sleeper but decently good is Florabelle. So I'm going to showcase one more run with Florabelle as one of the units. Maybe I'll be substituting Odie out. So the reason why Florabelle is good is because Florabelle has multiple summons, which helps to kill the Ice Prism pretty fast. So I think generally she's also okay. Elsa in general doesn't really fare very well in this boss because of the silence. So like I mentioned earlier, I think maybe Tamasia is okay, Corinne is okay. Like they're not good, obviously. They're units which wants to use their skill more, but they are usable, right? If you have no other units and you have them invested. So based on the units that I see right now, maybe the Satrana Mage comp is something that we can try. So I think for this final section, I will try out two different comps. So one is the Mage comp with the Mauler package, and then the other one is the the one with Florabelle. Okay, so for this one, I'll send in Florabelle with our dear Reina over here. So without further ado, let's run this run. So the reason why I am substituting Odie in the place is because I want to see whether or not the ability to kill off the Ice Prism faster will effectively increase our final damage better. At the same time, I think for Florabelle's case, right, the summons also benefit from the evocation buff, which increases the damage output by quite a bit. Okay, so this is the Florabelle team idea. So the next one we will do Satrana and Odie, although I'm not very positive on that because we are using the magical buff, which is good, but I think if we link Satrana, I mean Satrana does tank pretty well, so maybe we will be linking Odie instead. Yeah, I'm not sure who to link for that comp. So for the Satrana-Odie comp is we're gonna do a full magical team with the magical artifact later on, crescent moon, crescent spell. So this is the damage distribution. Okay, so a lot lower. So I think Florabelle is probably not a good damage dealer. Like, she's a good prism breaker, right? Her summons can help you break prism more easily, but if you compare her damage output to Odie, it's a lot lower, so you are sacrificing quite a bit of damage. So let's say now if you are going with Odie with a damage range of around 17 BU, right, or maybe 12 BU, we will be hitting a lot higher. But at the same time, because of Florabelle's existence, we are able to break away from the prism much more easily. So I think building around Florabelle works as well. Maybe removing Torrent because I don't think they're seasonal skill stacks, and then trying to see whether or not you can do better damage from there. So that's one variant. So next one, we will do the Satrana Mauler Mage variant. Okay, so the very last showcase. I think we will still be sending in Odie. Okay, I don't wanna protect Satrana, but at the same time, okay, I think we protect Satrana because kind of need her around to jam in the debuff. So we'll be using Crescent spell. So this is the Mauler Mage variant, which relies on Odie's magical damage output. Since Odie is a pretty decent boss specifically for this boss, with the buffs and the debuffs that Satrana can offer, we might be able to do decently good damage here. Okay, so you guys can see the damage numbers. And for the Crescent spell deals, I'll say, a decent chunk of damage as well, even at the endless mode. So if there's an opportunity for you to use Satrana together with Odie for the magical damage teams together with Crescent spell, I think is definitely viable. So right here, I think the damage number is still pretty decent, right? We are close to 30 billion. Okay, so Satrana got melted, unfortunately, but our two carries are still alive, although we will be losing quite a big chunk of the magical damage. So Odie melted as well. So this is where our damage falls off, because our only magical damage tick comes from the poison, right? So we didn't manage to proc the Crescent spell more. So this is definitely a viable team, although the magical damage actually died off pretty early. So we could definitely have hit more if they have survived longer. So this is the final damage distribution, focusing on Odie as the magical carry. So that's pretty much it. Just 4 different builds and some potential substitute ideas for you guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys again in the seasonal Dream Realm boss tomorrow. Bye guys.